Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with this one, I wanted to bring you the Mage Tower Challenge for the Beast Mastery Hunter. This was one out of the 7 challenges I completed to get my flying spell book. And it has a lot going on, but it does have a clear rhythm to it. And if you know the priorities, you can make this fight very easy. So I'm just going to be going over that priority, going over that rhythm to save you the time of having to figure that out for yourself and spend a bunch of money on consumables and the like. I didn't do anything special, no sockets, no time walking gear, nothing like that, just straight PvP gear on my hunter. So you're going to start the fight, you pull Tugar, and you're going to want to focus Tugar for the start of the fight here because the snake takes 99% less damage. As soon as you pull him, you're going to have to get ready for Fell Burst. You're going to want to rotate your Interrupt, your Stun, and your Trap to disrupt this. Dodge the circles on the ground and also watch for Sonic Scream. As soon as you see Sonic Scream, you want to cast Scare Beast over onto the snake. This is going to interrupt it and prevent you from taking a lot of damage. So dodge stuff on the ground, interrupt Fell Burst, and then fear the Sonic Burst. Do note that I think Fell Burst is the #1 priority. You want to pay attention to Tugar at all times because if your pet dies, it will one-shot your pet, and if it dies, it becomes a very big headache to try and recover the pull at that point. Next, Tugar will cast Earthquake. You want to move away from the brown circles on the ground. Those are going to hit you really hard, and you can see this rumbling under the ground. That rumbling under the ground is the snake boss that you'll need to position to run into these rocks. I send my pet to attack one of these eggs on the ground, which drags Tugar on top of them. Then I use multi-shot, I use intimidation there to stun the Fell Burst, and I try and line it up so that he runs right through those rocks on the ground, which is going to increase the damage that he takes so that we can kill him later on. Just use multi-shot on the boss here to keep Beast Cleave up while you're just still single target focusing down the boss. This is when the boss will also start to summon Fell Totems, which you are going to want to pay attention to, but they are about third in terms of priority. You have a long time to kill them. The main thing that will kind of screw you over is if your camera isn't pointed towards them to notice that they've spawned. So I continue to move around this rock on the ground to try and get the boss to move in. We use counter shot onto Fell Burst, and we were only able to get him to run into 2 rocks at this time. Avoid the green spikes on the ground. Basically, you never want to stand on anything in this fight. There's absolutely no reason to. The boss will come up. As soon as he does, he always casts Sonic Scream. So you just immediately start casting Scare Beast as soon as you see the boss starting to surface so that you can disrupt it. I think it's at this time where the boss starts testing you. You can see that green circle on the ground to the left. That is going to be a Fell Burst totem, and it's going to cast Fell Surge. But he will also cast something at the same time usually as the totem. So right about now, I'm watching this on a bit of a slower speed. You can see why the totem is less of a priority because look, he took forever, but if this Fell Burst goes off, my pet dies. So you need to be standing very close to the boss to be able to use Freezing Trap. I suggest using Freezing Trap in this phase because in the other phase where Earthquake's being casted, if you stand on top of the boss, it's very scary. As soon as I've stopped Fell Burst, my attention goes back to the worm so that I want to use my Scare Beast to interrupt the Sonic Scream. If you do get hit by one Sonic Scream once in a while, it's not a big deal. You can use Exhilaration to heal, and you can use your Aspect of the Turtle to immune its damage. Earthquake, you want to move away from the center of the room, and you want to position your pets to kind of attack the eggs right at the start, but they're not going to keep attacking the eggs. This is just to reposition the boss so that your multi-shot and your Beast Cleave is going to kind of distribute the damage. Here you can see a green circle on the ground, which also means that the boss is about to cast Fell Burst, so we want to kill the totem and then get ready to counter shot Fell Burst. I think using counter shot and intimidation in this phase is better because if you get near the boss, it gets a little bit messy, right? There's green stuff coming out of the ground. This guy's chasing you around on the floor. You don't really want to be too close to the boss in this phase just because there's so much going on. You need to dodge the spits from the ads. But the goal here is don't stand in any green circles and try and bait this guy that seemingly randomly moves under the ground. You can see that quaking earth. I move closer to the boss because I know they're about to cast Fell Burst. It's been some time. So I was getting ready to Freezing Trap. And you can see how hectic this gets, right? Like he's running through at the same time. So I just use my intimidation here and my counter shot rather than trying to get the Freezing Trap. Then you kill the totem, boss surfaces, Sonic Scream gets casted right away. Here I tried to gamble it and you can see I wasn't able to get it off, but it really isn't the end of the world. As long as you're using your Exhilaration pretty much on cooldown, you're going to reset it through talents. So you can always kind of tank one of those at the beginning of the fight. It's not really a big deal. You can probably tank one every time he phases. If you were really too slow on getting the Scare Beast, it's just generally you'd want to pay attention to. These worms aren't a huge deal to kill off, so don't focus fire them. Just use multi-shot and beast cleave. Here's Sonic Scream. I see the pop up in the middle of my screen. I start casting Scare Beast. I notice that I'm not going to be able to land it in time. Rather than get interrupted, which honestly it wouldn't have mattered, I just stop my cast and I immediately go back to attacking the boss. And you can see I was hit by 2 of them, and I'm still really not even close to dead. If you're using a leech pet, I would definitely recommend that. Here we see the green circle on the ground to the left. That's a totem, which means you'll also cast Fell Burst. I get lucky because he Earthquake phases instead. Fell Burst at the same time as the Fell Totem can be pretty rough. He's going to continue to summon more and more eggs the lower health that he gets. So you still want him positioned right in between all of the eggs so that when you multi-shot and you beast cleave, your pets are going to cleave the pets or the ads on the side while still being able to focus all your damage on Tugar. And now Fell Burst is being casted. We don't have stun or kick, so we need to get close to the boss, drop Freezing Trap, and dodge the guy under the ground at the same time. Here the boss repositions a little bit because he's interrupted, so I charge my pets to the left egg to reposition and then get them back onto the main boss this way again, so they're stacked up. Dodge circles. Boss is, resurfacing on the left. We're trying to get him to run into this rock by running into it, and we get him to run into one of the rocks. Then we're trying to dodge all the circles on the ground. Using your disengage during that cross animation is a good idea. It's about the same cooldown, so you'll get a little bit of mobility. Here's the Fell Totem, and he'll usually cast Fell Burst at the same time, so you want to be right on top of that Fell Burst because the totem will take some time to go off. Kick Fell Burst so your pet doesn't die. He'll surface. As soon as he surfaces, Scare Beast right away because he is going to Sonic Scream. This is the easiest one to stop, so I recommend making sure that you stop that one. You get the most amount of time. Later on, there might be a lot going on, so you can kind of put the Sonic Scream on a bit of a back burner. But now that I've gotten some of those scales down, you can see his stacks are only at 1 on the buff. I bring my pet to the worm, and then I use multi-shot, and I start a little bit of focus cleave onto the main boss, which is Jormorg the Worm. That way we can cleave both targets. We still need to stop Fell Burst. I honestly, in this phase, would recommend being near the boss to use Freezing Trap rather than the stun that I used here. But we need to also kill the Fell Surge Totem. And this is where your camera is really important. You kind of want to have view of the whole map as much as you can. Sonic Scream, we want to cast Scare Beast. Here you can use disengage if you need to. You don't always have to, but they line up pretty well with this cross on the ground that I noticed. Now the next mechanic's likely going to be Fell Burst or Earthquake. So Earthquake's going to be, the roof is falling, so get away from the middle of the room. Get ready to send your pet onto one of the eggs. This is where it becomes a little bit more delicate because you need to juggle getting the guy on top of the worm and then back to the egg. So I send him to the far egg to attack it. This way the boss moves through all of the eggs so I can multi-shot and then I can start cleaving them. And it does become a bit more of a challenge when there are more eggs. As soon as you've gotten all those stacks off the boss, you don't need to really worry about these big rocks in the middle. Counter shot during this phase to stop the Fell Burst. Now I don't have a stun because we used that earlier, which means that I may have to use a Freezing Trap. So again, I recommend saving the stun and the kick for this Earthquake phase. He's got a Fell Totem coming in on the back line. I need to kill that or it's going to stun me and mess up a bunch of mechanics, but I also need to interrupt it. And you can see how chaotic this is, right? He's about to cast Fell Burst. I got to kill a totem. I have to dodge the guy that's chasing me on the ground. I have to dodge the cross. I have to dodge the ads. And I also need to be close to the boss because otherwise the travel time of the Freezing Trap will allow the Fell Burst to finish. So I'm trying to desperately move into range of this, lob the trap and try and get it. And it ends up going off. So it's not the end of the world. You can still just not break your trap and try and go for a res pet. You can use Aspect of the Turtle here in res pet as well. Feign Death, try and drop aggro. He's going to get the Sonic Scream off. And look how much of that was a mess. And it was because we used the stun in the phase that's really easy to interrupt the Fell Burst because there's not a lot going on. And we used the Freezing Trap in the phase where it's really hard. So this would be kind of one of my #1 tips is to avoid doing that. In this phase, you want to have all the ads dead at this point. Still focus on Fell Burst and the totem. So we target the Fell Burst, we kick the next cast, and then here comes a Sonic Scream. We don't have Exhilaration. We're not really in position to kick it. Your main priority is to kind of get Tugar down to about 60k, maybe 60, 70,000 health. So he's the same as the worm because if you kill both or kill one before the other gets enraged and the fight becomes a lot more difficult. So I found it easier to just kind of keep their health going steadily at about even, but Jormorg has half as much total health. Here, the Earthquake phase again. This time we have a stun. We're going to use disengage to get away from the worm that's under the ground. We have our boss perfectly positioned in the middle for multi-shot to cleave all of the ads, so we can just focus on single target on the boss. We're waiting for totems, and we're waiting for Earthquake to end because it means Fell Burst is likely going to be cast here. So in this phase, we want to use counter shot and we want to use intimidation. We can see the totem spawn behind me. This is why I recommend kind of moving and repositioning your camera because the totem can really spawn almost anywhere, and he'll usually Fell Burst at the same time. So stop the Fell Fel Burst because the totem will go slower, and then kill the totem, and then go back to repositioning to the boss, keeping your Beast Cleave up with multi-shot, keeping your Barb Shot stacks at 3 as much as you can, and then using Kill Command on cooldown and Cobra Shot, and I'm just basically just shoving my damage cooldowns whenever. I'm not really thinking about that particularly, just get as much damage out as possible so that when this phases, there's not really any worms up, so you can kind of get back onto the main worm, because once you've got them here 100k 60 to 100k, you really do want to start maximizing your damage by hitting the main worm as well as Togor at the same time. Sonic Scream when he comes up immediately. This time around my pet's alive, but Fel Burst cast at the same time, so we got to kick that, and then we're going to start focusing down the worm a little bit, try and get the health a little more even. And this is why I position back here in the corner so that the Fel Search totems are more likely to spawn in my line of sight. I'm standing in this far back right corner, but we're just going to cleave targets with multi-shot, and we're going to start doing more AoE because we've got all those stacks off. We can start to get some damage in on the worm during this phase, and then get all of our main damage in onto the Tauren during the earthquake phase. Here we can see Sonic Scream, but they're also casting some green stuff on the ground under me. I'm not going to have enough time to stop this, but we have Exhilaration off cooldown. So if we have Exhilaration off cooldown, we can easily heal through that. Now we need to stop Fel Burst. The fight will become really annoying. I was actually lucky here that it was aggroed to my second pet instead of my main pet because it doesn't drop threat. So my second pet is probably going to come to life at any moment. I actually didn't notice that in the recording the first time that I'd done this. When I kill the totem, reposition away from the green cross on the ground, and this is where getting the boss to kind of go back to the eggs and then back to the worm, like I was saying, can be more difficult. Sending your pets to the furthest egg in the back so that the boss runs in between all of the eggs, and then trying to dragging him around in a triangle until he's in kind of the perfect spot right in the center, so that way you get the maximum amount of cleave and you can dedicate more damage to the main boss. It's not a big deal in this phase that you run now the boss into these rocks. You just need to stop Fel Burst. I wait till it comes to the end. I use counter shot, and you just want to be moving around on the outside perimeter. This way you don't need to be dodging the cross, the green circles on the ground, and the guy moving through you. We have Intimidation and we have Freezing Trap as options here to stop the next Fel Burst. I would again recommend Intimidation. During this phase, we kill the totem, and he's likely to cast Fel Burst in and around the same timing of the totem, so I'm getting ready for that. And I think I use a Freezing Trap here, but again, I would recommend using Intimidation. I guess it is still kind of nice to be able to use whatever you can in this melee range, like a Freezing Trap, but this phase is way easier to use it. Now we're going to use Scare Beast when the boss comes up. We're going to finish all the ads, and then we're going to send our pets back onto the main worm. This is going to drag the boss on top of the boss, the other boss, and this is going to allow us to cleave with multi-shot and get some damage into Jormorg at the same time. This strategy is a lot more slow and steady. Wins the race rather than kind of just rushing one target down. I know I've seen some guys where they rush the Tauren down and then you just kill Jormorg and try and cast Scare Beast before the enrage. That can be really challenging. This phase, we're just watching for Fel Burst, and we're keeping our camera pretty wide here on the entire map. We're Scare Beasting the Sonic Scream, and we're trying to get ready for the Fel Totem that could spawn behind us, honestly. It ends up spawning right here next to the boss. So we're going to kill the Fel Totem, and then Sonic Scream is probably going to go off here. It's not the end of the world. We're full health again. It's only a big deal when you're getting hit by a bunch of other stuff, or it's a ton of them in a row. Then you need to start to be worried. But we got the worm down to half. We're going back into another earthquake phase. So main priority here, now that we've got all the stacks over, is to just dodge mechanics and get the boss in a position where we can cleave the eggs as well as the boss. We send the pets to the far egg. We watch where the boss is going. Is he in a good position? Should we move him further to the middle? So we're just kind of wiggling our pets around onto different eggs while dodging stuff on the ground to try and get the maximum stack. It can get a little bit more challenging here when you've got so many eggs to try and get the perfect multi-shot stack so your Beast Cleave is hitting. But we're just going to then basically run circles around the boss, counter shot Fel Burst, watch for Fel Totems on the ground. That little tiny green circle, there's a bunch of green circles, but it's actually in the back there, casting Fel Surge. So I've got to be able to snipe that off. And I just like rotating in a circle and always moving in this phase because the boss is kind of sporadic and there's always these animations going off on the ground. So if you try to stand still too long, it becomes a bit chaotic. Also, by panning your camera constantly like this means that you won't miss one of the Fel Totems that gets spawned, but you can already start to see the rhythm, right? He's going to do Fel Totem, he's going to do Fel Burst, and Fel Burst is higher priority. We get in melee range for Freezing Trap. We see Sonic Scream getting casted, but there's also a green circle on the ground. A little bit stressful with everything going on. So we're lucky we were able to get the Psychic Scream, or the Sonic Scream, with our Scare Beast, now Fell Search Totem on the ground, and we have ads. So this wasn't the cleanest phase. Again, there was a lot of ads. I spent a lot of time repositioning the pet. So I still prioritized kind of finishing the worms here. And again, the slow and steady. Some people, you may try to just rush it and leave these worms up for the next set of worms and then kind of just cleave them down. It just adds another layer of mechanics for you to avoid if you want to rush that. So I just took it slow. I prioritized stopping Fell Burst here and then try to turtle the incoming hit because I don't have exhilaration and I'm already low health. And I'm already kind of behind. I was not able to Scare Beast that in time. And I still prioritized Fell Burst first because if that Fell Burst goes off too many times and you're not able to recover, your pet will lose all aggro and the fight becomes a massive headache to be able to deal with. So this phase now, I'm going to really need to stay on top of these eggs, on top of these worms, because I wasn't able to get too much damage in onto the main boss, which is the worm. We're just going to run in circles in the opposite direction of where he spawned. So he's in the far back of the room. So we're going to run in circles to the right this time around. We're waiting for Earthquake to finish, which then means that he's going to start Fell Burst. He's going to start spamming the Fell Totems. And we're just kind of moving side to side, monitoring where the Earthquake is under the ground. We can see a Fell Totem being spawned. Green's on top of us. We need to move. We also need to be ready to stop Fell Burst because they like to cast at the same time. Kick Fell Burst, switch to the Totem, kill the Totem off, back to the boss, multi-shot up, kill shot range now as well. Keep our barbed shot stacks as high as we can. And this is where, again, you can maybe start to feel like you're going to need to get greedy because these worms are not exactly low health and the boss is about to transition again. And I really need to get damage in on the main boss because I've got 2 gore at 30k and I think the worm is still above 30k at this point. So it's a kind of a balancing act. You know they're going to cast Sonic Scream though. We've been over that. So Jormog is going to come up. We're going to Scare Beast the Psychic Scream. We're going to just finish off the ads and stop Fell Burst. We need to get in melee range to drop Freezing Trap. Otherwise, sometimes the travel range won't let you finish it, and you're going to get messed up like that. Dodge the big cross on the ground. Get ready for the Fell Totem. We've got all the ads cleaned up. We got 2 gore low health. Got to get the pets back onto the boss. We got to finish the boss in this phase or the next phase or get him just low enough. You do want to kill the Tauren first. Here you can see the Fell Totem spawn in the back because I've panned my camera to try and look at everything in the background. I was able to see it and kill it. Sonic Scream is being casted here. I decided to just ignore it. I'm full health and try and focus down 2 gore a little bit so we can get into the next phase, which is going to be the main worm left alone. We use a stun here. Again, maybe it would have been better to use Counter Shot first. It's a lower cooldown and save the stun for the Earthquake phase because things are way more chaotic. But we're then going to switch back to the main boss, try and focus him down, and it's just this balancing act of keeping the Tauren the same health. Now in this phase, I think you can be pretty confident in finishing 2 gore. The worm is below 20k health. He'll enrage and Sonic Scream will become a real problem, but you can just spam Scare Beast and make sure that you're always getting that on time. And with how low they are, you should be able to finish it with your Intimidation Stun and a couple of Scare Beasts on the main worm. Here you can see what happens when you run into the worm that's underneath the ground. You get stunned. Really not a good idea. That's why I always recommend kind of moving in circles around the map. Send your pets to the far egg so that 2 gore runs through all of them so you can cleave. You can see a Fell Search Totem, and he's probably going to cast Fell Burst at the same time because they love to just challenge your ability to see this and get all the priorities. So we kill the totem, we kick the Fell Burst, and now it's at this point where I could really finish 2 gore if I wanted to. I had been doing this for so many attempts that I was stressed out. And I just wanted to finish the worm ads because I didn't want to deal with dodging their mechanic at the same time. So again, it's a very long fight, right? So I wanted to make sure that all the mechanics were done correctly. I wanted to kill all the ads, make sure everything was clean, get back on the boss, Sonic Scream as soon as he comes up, cast Scare Beast, fear that, then switch back to 2 gore, try and finish 2 gore off, go for Beast of Wrath so I don't need to deal with these Fell Bursts anymore, trap the Fell Burst, almost didn't get it in time. Now he's trapped at low health, so to balance their health out, I actually just kind of focused Jormog, left him in the trap towards the end here because the worm has way less HP than the Tauren. We got to kill the Fell Search Totem as soon as we can, and then just keep focusing on getting the worm back into kill shot range. I really was just scared of killing the other one off at the time because I didn't know if I could trust the mechanics or not. So Sonic Scream's gonna get casted. We try to race it with Scare Beast as soon as it gets channeled. We managed to win it. Wearing some haste to make sure that you can finish that is actually a pretty good idea. Fell Burst is getting casted. We still got to focus on dealing with that. And then at this point, we've got 2 guard 4K. We had the worm at 3K. Basically, unless we just run into every AoE, we should be able to do this fight. And honestly, running here in the middle is a bad idea during Earthquake, because that's where the Earthquake spawns, and if you get hit by one of those rocks, it could be pretty much game over. I decided to take 2 Gore down, just again because of how low the worm was. I probably could have taken him down at any point that I wanted to. There's nothing really else to do in this phase here with the eggs, so I'm just kind of beast cleaving the eggs, trying not to get hit on anything, using exhilaration on cooldown. Honestly, you could tell I was fatigued, I think, on this fight, because I'd been in here for so long. There's no way you want to be getting hit by that Earthquake, and that's kind of what the fight does, is it tests your stamina, tests your ability to see these priorities and follow the priorities while doing it for multiple times. So again, I haven't played much Beast Mastery in a long time, so I was still pretty new to it, and able to come in here and just kind of take it slow and steady. But if you are more proficient at Beast Mastery and setting up these cleaves onto the ads, then these phases will be a lot cleaner for you. You're probably going to kill the boss a lot faster. You probably don't need to take it as slow and steady as I did, but I really just wanted to take it safely. He's going to rise. We need to scare Beast right away. And then I decided, you know what, I'm finishing the ads. I don't want anything that could possibly mess this up for me. As soon as all the ads are dead, then we're going to go on to the boss. We're going to press the rest of our cooldowns and try and look to finish him while he's in kill shot range. Do note that when the Tauren is dead, he's enraged. So if that Sonic Scream goes off, it is going to be very, very, very nasty. But we have more than enough damage to secure the kill at that point with how low they were. We could use Intimidation if we needed to, or we could just keep spamming Scare Beast whenever the Sonic Scream is about to be channeled, and I was able to do it. So for me, slow and steady worked. I know there are some ways that you can race it, kill Tugar a little faster. Got a little bit messy towards the end of this run in particular. It's just all about keeping your stamina. Make sure you stop the Fell Burst. Make sure you kill the Fell Totem. Move in a circle. Keep your camera on the whole map so that you can see the totem spawning, you can see the animations, and you can see where the boss is moving under the ground, and interrupt Sonic Burst with Scare Beast. And you're going to be soaring the skies in a spell's tome as well. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you like these types of guides and news and patch updates, then make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date, in the know, in the now with everything World of Warcraft. And other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.